Hello, and thank you all for standing by. At this time, I would like to inform all participants that your lines are on a listen-only mode until the question and answer session of today's conference. This call is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I will now turn the call over to Punja Patel. Ma'am, you may begin.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Punja Patel, and I am the program manager for the CDFI program and the NACA program within the CDFI fund. As a reminder, today's webinar will be recorded, and all of our materials, all of our application materials are available on our website. So please keep that in mind. Next slide, please. Before we get started, even though today's webinar will be focused on questions and answers, I do just want to note that there are some topics today that we will not be covering. We will not be going over why an organization was unsuccessful in past years. We will not be focusing on providing instructions on how to enter application data into the CDFI Fund's award management system, also known as AMIS. Further, we will not be addressing and answering matching funds questions that are very specific to individual organizations or specific circumstances. And finally, we will not be answering questions related to the revised CDFI certification application or the process for coming into compliance and or obtaining CDFI certification via the new application. For those questions, we ask that you visit the CDFI certification page, which is available on the CDFI Fund website as well. I also have with me several of my colleagues that will be helping me to answer many of the questions we have today. And so we'll introduce them later on in the segment. Next slide, please. So just to start off, I just want to reiterate some of the critical deadlines for applicants that are applying or are planning to apply under the CDFI program for this funding round. Particularly, as you can see on this slide, there are several deadlines that have passed, but I wanted to draw attention to the upcoming deadlines that are coming up. The last day to contact the CDFI program or NACA program staff is February 13th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and you can do this via service request in AMIS, or you can email CDFI Help email address, or you can call the CDFI Fund Help Desk. The last day to contact AMIS IT Help Desk for any questions related to AMIS technical support is February 15th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, you can reach out via service request in AMIS. You can email the email that's on the slide, amis@cdfi.treas.gov, or call the number that is on that line. The last day to submit Title VI compliance worksheets, as well as the last day to submit the CDFI program or NACA program application for both FA and TA is February 15th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, and this must be done through AMIS. So I just wanted to point those out. Next slide, please. And a couple of additional deadlines specifically for uncertified FA applicants to keep in mind. The last day to contact certification, compliance, and monitoring team regarding the CDFI certification application is March 1st at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. And again, you can do this via service request in AMIS or email us at the CDFI Help email address. And then the last day to submit your CDFI certification application, if you are an uncertified FA applicant, is March 5th, 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time as well. And this must be done through AMIS as well. Next slide. One item that we just wanted to clarify, it was brought to our attention that the maximum TA award request amount was incorrect in the executive summary of the CDFI program NOFA. And so we did just want to clarify that the maximum TA award request amount for the CDFI program is $300,000. Similarly, there was a similar error in the NACA program NOFA as well, and the maximum TA award request amount under the NACA program is $400,000. Again, Table 2 of the NOFA, which lists out the maximum award amounts, is correct, and we will be posting a technical correction to the NOFA this week. So if anyone has any questions about that, you can certainly email us or reach out to us if you have any questions. But we wanted to make sure that was clear to folks and just wanted to emphasize that point. Next slide, please. All right. Well, those are just a few of the things we wanted to just give everybody a heads up about before we dove into questions and answers, which we will focus the rest of the remainder of our time on. Again, as I noted, I have some staff with me here today who will help to answer some questions. I have Tanya I'm mixing up names. I have Tanya Vardavarian, I have Matthew Pickering, and I have Annie Kraft, who are all associate program managers, and they will also be assisting me in answering any questions that come up today. The operator will provide instructions on how to ask a question over the phone. And just as a reminder, all questions must come in through the phone. The Q&A and the chat features have been disabled so that we can answer all questions. We can hear, everyone can hear the question and hear the response that comes that we respond with. Operator, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. At this time, if you would like to ask a question, please make sure that your phone is unmuted and press *1. Please state your first and last name when prompted. Again, that is *1 to ask your question. If you need to withdraw from the queue, press *2. One moment while we wait for parties to queue up. One moment. Our first question comes from Phoebe Quattrucci. Your line is open. One moment.
Operator, are we having trouble hearing? Is anyone else having trouble hearing the question? I don't think we are hearing anything.
One moment.
Thank you.
One moment while we work on a technical issue. Ma'am, your line is open. You may go ahead with your question.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Oh, great. I have a question regarding the beneficiary snapshot. And the guidance says to remove above moderate and moderate income beneficiaries and who are presumably white. And I'm wondering if we remove them from lines 17 and 18, which is the income characteristics of total beneficiaries, we would also remove them from the beneficiaries, the corresponding beneficiaries in 10 and 11. Is that correct?
Hi, Phoebe. Give us just 1 second, please, while we
Sure.
we confer about that in the background. We'll be right back.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Phoebe, in the interest of time, I think it's taking us a little bit more time in the background to kind of discuss this one, and just so that we can go on to other folks' questions in the meantime, would you mind putting this question into a service request so that we can respond to you that way?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And the next question comes from Michael Rogers. Your line is open.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, can you hear me? Sorry, I'm just checking if you can hear me with the audio.
Yes, we can.
Okay. For those entities who are a credit union that have a fiscal year off calendar year, which data period should we use when calculating the retained earnings in the calculator?
Great. Thank you for that question. So for the regulated institutions, including credit unions, you're going to want to use your 1231 call report for the retained earnings calculator.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure thing.
And you are ready for the next question?
Yep.
Thank you. That comes from Kathy Kuharski. Your line is open.
Hi, thank you. I actually had a question about the beneficiary snapshot as well. I'm curious about the answer to the other question, but I guess I will submit that as a service request as well. But for the snapshot, so we have beneficiaries that are indirect, and it's nearly impossible for us to get demographic data. But it says that you have to have a regulatory reason for not having actual data. How do I handle that? I mean, I don't think it's a regulatory reason that I can't, if we fund a real estate development that has small business tenants that creates jobs, that 3 degrees of separation for us to try to get information, and we don't have those resources. So I wanted to know, is the only way we can use proxy information is if there's a regulatory reason that we can't ask for it?
Yeah, just give us 1 minute. We'll get back to you on this one as well. We're just confirm.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if there's a reason you can't provide that you have to use proxy data or you can't provide it, I think the best thing to do is to fill out the beneficiary table with the information you have, and then use use the narrative responses to explain kind of where, why you can't explain why you're unable to provide it, and kind of explain kind of how you came to the proxy data.
Okay, but it's okay if it's not a regulatory reason.
Yeah, I mean, we want folks to try to do, we're trying to emphasize and want to have as much actual data as possible, but we do understand that sometimes organizations are unable to do that, particularly regulatory organizations. But I think, just provide the explanation and rationale and kind of how you came to those estimates in the narrative, and then we'll kind of take that into account as we're reviewing the application.
And I had a second question about the Title VI compliance sheet. We were and I couldn't find anything that actually talked about the questions themselves. The board composition question kind of confused us. We're not sure if it's applicable to our governing board, because it says it's a non-elected program-related board, and our governing board is not related to a program. It's related to our organization, and we do elect our members. So I was wondering if you had clarity on that.
So I would say, give us 1 second. I'm going to see if the individual, if we have someone from compliance that can answer that question. If not, we may ask you to submit it. Given the specific nature of the question, we may ask you to submit it via SR. But let me just quickly check on that, and then we'll get back to you. Just a quick minute.
Hi, yeah, this is Mia. So the question regarding the Title VI worksheet, if you could send that via service request so that your portfolio manager can kind of take a look into your AMIS account to provide a response for that, that would be great.
Okay, thank you.
The next question comes from Andy Mayer. Your line is open.
Hi, thank you. I had a question about the target market section of the CDFI application. Our target market is persons with disabilities, and it was my understanding that if that's the target market, we wouldn't be required to upload a map. But when I'm in the application, it still prompts for you to upload a map. So I made a map in AMIS and just filled it in as persons with disabilities because there wasn't even a drop down for that target market. And this just seems a little odd to me, and I was wondering if I was going about this the right way.
I think you may be talking about the certification application and the application to get certified as a CDFI. And this webinar is for the CDFI program application, for which folks are applying for an FA award or a TA award. And so I would suggest that for your question, you submit an SR, and then we can, our certification team will be able to better address that question.
Okay, all right. I have submitted a few, but I will try again.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And Everett White, your line is open.
Hey, good afternoon. I've got a question on Section 14 about the anomalies in historic activity. So I think it's pretty clear that if your projection is lower than your baseline, Section E pops up and you can explain it. But my question is, what if your projection is above the baseline but just slightly above the baseline, and you'd like to explain why? Is there a mechanism to do that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I would say the best place to kind of explain that would be in the narrative questions and using the narrative responses to provide any of that kind of information that you have that you want to supplement your, the information that you've provided in your financial projections. If you want to supplement any of that, I would utilize the narrative responses to do that.
Okay, great. I'll do that. Just want to make sure it wasn't a negative to the application. I don't think that the size of the increase is supposed to be considered.
No.
Just to make sure.
You're absolutely correct. We are not. Yeah, we're the size of the increase is not. We're looking at the overall business plan, not just focused on the size of the increase. So you are correct on that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you. And I do have one last question from Jess Key for this session. Jess Key, your line is open.
Hi, thank you. I have a question about matching funds. For financial institutions using retained earnings as matching funds, should they use 2022 as the most recent year? The reason that I ask is that the 2023 call reports will not be available by February 15th, and the guidance says credit union applicants must use their call reports for the 4 most recent historical fiscal years to complete the calculator. All inputs must be tied directly to the applicant's call report.
Great, thanks for that question. We are aware of this issue, and we released some guidance on our website, I believe, or we released guidance as well during the last webinar. We're asking regulated institution applicants who may not have their call reports by the application deadline to use internal financials, sort of pre-call report financials, to estimate those 2023 numbers. During the evaluation process, we will pull the 2023 final 12/31 call reports in order to verify the information that you put in your retained earnings calculator. And if it happens to shift a little bit, that's okay. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. And the next question comes from Rosio Flores. Your line is open.
Hi, question about financial products. So I see there's the pick one, affordable housing, climate centered, and those things. One is consumer financial products. How do we break that out? Like, is that defined by what we define our products to be? Because essentially all our products are consumer products. I just want to be sure that we're breaking that down. And then I imagine that in the describe section, that's where we're putting, like, what are those products, right? Like describing it there. But is there like a specific way we should be selecting those? Or is it okay to pick all consumer financial products and then we list what those are? Or just a little bit more guidance on that?
Hi, this is Tanya. Can you clarify, is this, what portion of the application are you, there are a few different places where we ask a description of financial products. Is this the table where you list your existing financial products?
Yes, there's like a pick. You get to like click on it. It's like a checkbox. So you can either click like affordable housing, climate center. There's an other category. And then you're supposed to describe and give an amount of a total portfolio outstanding. So right. I'm just wondering like how we break it up. So we have like climate centered financing. We also have mortgage products. So we also have, personal loans, right? So like how do we break that up versus putting it all under consumer financial products? Because essentially they're all consumer facing, right? I just want to make sure we're doing that part right.
Right. I would suggest taking the former approach where you you enter the information as closely aligned with the predetermined or predefined lines of business that we have, or types of products that we have. And if you're unsure if they don't seem to fit within one of those, then you would put it under and describe it. Does that make sense? So if you do, if you have consumer financial products that are also affordable housing, I would suggest putting that, group under affordable housing. But if you have consumer financial products that don't seem to fit into any of the predefined categories, then I would put them under the other category and describe them.
Great, thank you.
The next question comes from Phoebe Catrucci. Your line is open.
Thank you. I have a question regarding the definition of the climate-centered financing. The way that the glossary is worded, it sounds like it's for project-based finance, an energy project or something like that. I'm wondering if it also applies to operating companies that are doing climate-related things, like manufacturing a product, that does something green, for lack of a better word, or that have a climate resiliency-related service. Do those also count as climate-centered financing?
Hi, Phoebe. This is Matthew. It sounds like you're you're asking all of the tough questions today.
Fully for me.
Yeah. Just because this one requires a little bit more sort of contemplation, interpretation that might take us some time. Would it be possible to submit this one as a service request, please?
Sure. Actually, I already have, but I thought I would jump the gun. Okay.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And will there be an updated Q&A with the service requests that you've received that aren't, totally specific to a single CDFI, the more general questions? And when might we expect that?
I think at this point, we're not anticipating releasing an additional updated frequently asked questions document apart from what's already there. But I don't know if we can be absolutely definitive or final about that, but I would say at this point, no.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Again, if you would like to ask a question, please press *1. At this time, we're showing no further questions. One moment. We do have a question from Karen. One moment. Karen, your line is open.
Great. Hi there. Just a couple of things. One is that first question about the beneficiary snapshot. I think I'm getting the sense that maybe multiple people would be interested in that answer. So if you're not going to post another FAQs document, I'm just wondering if there's a way to get that answer out to the group. I certainly am interested in that answer. But my main question is, I just want to verify. So my interpretation this year is that there's a native CDFI. If they apply for the core funding, that they're still exempt from the match requirements. I just want to make absolutely sure that that's a correct interpretation. Thank you.
Sure. Yes, that is definitely a correct interpretation. There was, I don't quite recall the name of the act, but a few years ago, the matching funds requirement was permanently waived for all native CDFIs for both the NACA and CDFI program. Operator, I'm not sure if we can get Phoebe Quattrucci back on the line again to re-ask that question that we started today's call off with, if that's possible.
Her line is open again.
Oh, great, that was easy. The question about the beneficiaries, is that the one?
Yes.
So on the beneficiary snapshot, and in the guidance, it says it doesn't actually say it. There's an example with 10 employees, and you would only count 6 as beneficiaries because the other 4 are white and have moderate or above moderate income. And it says, so the implication is that they do not appear on the chart, on the beneficiary snapshot, in lines 18 and 17, and presumably they would be taken out of lines 10 and 11 too, because then your numbers would look really weird if they weren't taken out of there as well. And so that's my question. Are we literally not showing beneficiaries who are white and moderate or above moderate income in this chart?
So let me take a first shot at this, and I think part of the answer to your question is it depends. I think in the example that you noted, the example 4, which is, I believe, at the end of kind of the section 12, where we talk about beneficiary snapshot in the FA guidance. So if one of those employees with incomes above low income was a part of a targeted population, so if they were a person with a disability, if they were African American, they would, regardless of their income, they would be considered a beneficiary. So I think, again, examples of beneficiaries include employees of a small business that are either low income, underserved, or meet the eligible market criteria. And based on our, fiscal year 2024 NOFAs, as you know, eligible market is defined as the geographic area meeting the requirements that are set forth in the citation in the NOFA, or individuals that are low income, African American, Hispanic, Native American, Native Hawaiian, Alaska Native, or other Pacific Islander, Filipino, Vietnamese, or persons with disability. But I think to your point, in that specific example, the reason those individuals are not included is as a beneficiary is because they are not, their incomes are above the low income threshold, as well as they're not a part of the targeted population. And in this example, and specifically, we don't, there is not an eligible market defined. So I think just to kind of, I don't know if that helps, but maybe that can be a starting.
So we're basically going to take them out of all of our beneficiary numbers. So that would be in the first section, which is the client and beneficiary information, and out of the above moderate and moderate income. So theoretically, if you did not have any OTPs that were above moderate or moderate income, you could have zeros in in lines 17 and 18. Is that correct?
Sorry, repeat that last part again.
So say I have 100 beneficiaries and 20 of them are moderate income or above moderate income. Everybody's white. Just for the sake of argument, I'm going to be showing then 0 in above moderate income, 0 in moderate income, and then the other 80 people are going to be distributed among low, very low, and extremely low income. Is that correct?
Let me just confer quickly with my team members. I'm just having a hard time processing the question without seeing it in writing. So we may actually ask you to follow up with a service request if others on the team are having the same challenge. I don't want to give any incorrect information. So if that's the case, we'll let you know.
Okay.
But give us a quick minute, since we know others were also interested in this response. Just give us maybe 2 minutes to confer, and then we'll just kind of see if we were able to kind of give you a response, or if we need you to repeat the question, or have any follow-up questions, your questions as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Phoebe. It's Matthew again. Thanks everybody for holding on that. I think that one of the things that you may consider to be missing in example 4 is, for instance, say those 2 non-low income qualifying white employees lived in a low income census tract. Mm-hmm. They would be beneficiaries who were, average or above income.
Yes.
If they were not in an eligible market or target market.
Okay. So, right. So if they're white, they have moderate or above moderate income, and they do not live in an investment area, then we take them out of lines 17, 18, as well as 10 and 11, which are in fact our denominator for the calculation.
Yes, those denominators, so Amos is going to, if I'm understanding that correctly, what you're asking, Amos is going to validate that the total number that you list in each of the separate categories is equal to the denominator, so it comes out as a 1/1 ratio.
So we would have to take them out of 10 and 11 to make that happen.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So those 2 beneficiaries will not be showing up anywhere in these charts, correct? Because, just to circle back, because they have moderate or above moderate income, they are white, and they do not live in an investment area.
Yes.
Boom. Okay. We got it. Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, and
Thanks
Dee,
for
also
your
just wanted to, just for folks who may not have the guidance right in front of them, there is a sentence that says, generally, any target market member, low-income person, or underserved person that benefits from a transaction can be counted as a beneficiary. So I think we're just honing in on that a little bit more. So I think that's consistent with what we just discussed.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming back to this.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Emma Tinsley. Your line is open.
Thank you. I have two questions, but the first one I think is going to be an easy one. I know we're supposed to remove RRP and ERP from our loan portfolio and assets. Should we also remove it from the government grants input in the historic financial input?
Thank you for your question. So I think, why we're asking you to remove those items from your financial products closed in an eligible market and a target market is because that field ultimately feeds into what will become your performance goals and measures if you're selected to receive an award. And those performance goals and measures do not allow you to double count ERP and RRP transactions, for instance. I think there's a few other programs in there. So that's the reason they're being deducted from there. But I do believe that you should still report that in government grants, because that is not a factor, that does not factor into the PG&M, and we want to make sure that's accurate for other parts of the evaluation process.
Okay. Okay, so those should be included in government grants. Should they also be included in the total financing capital?
That, I think, maybe submit that to us as a service request. Of getting I think it would be better if we just answered that question on a one-off basis for folks, because that's a little bit, it's a little specific. So I think maybe if we just ask, if you just submit a service request on that one, we could better answer you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. My last question was just about whether there is any guidance on the healthy thresholds or ranges for the application assessment tool financial ratios, in particular the financing capital liquidity ratio. Is there any guidance on kind of what range y'all are looking for?
No, so we don't provide the guidance or the thresholds that lead into the specific scores that make up the AAT, and part of that is because it's part of a proprietary tool that the CDFI fund developed a while ago. I just want to reassure you that the purpose of the AAT step in the model is to identify organizations that are a going concern, at risk of default, major red flags. We do not cut a large number of organizations from consideration as a result of the AAT. It is really designed to identify groups with severe issues.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you. Our next question comes from William Farnsville. Your line is open.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I have a question about the retained earnings. When I initially started the application, I answered that question, yes, and I punched in a number of retained earnings that I thought we would use. Later changed my mind, and so on the retained earnings question, I'm able to change my answer to no, but when I get to the match calculation, it still shows the number that I originally put in. If that cannot be resolved, is there a narrative section where I can explain that amount for retained earnings is not supposed to be considered as match?
Thanks for your question. I believe we got this as a service request already. I'm not sure if you got your response. But essentially what you've run into is a technical, it's not a technical issue, but it's sort of a part of the design of how the application is structured in AMIS. We call it a sort of, it's a dependency. Basically what you did when you answered yes initially was you triggered dependent subsections, which you can't simply back out of by changing your answer to no, because there's additional information that kind of gets buried in the application. You can get it. There is a way out of it. You're not trapped forever. I believe in the response to the service request that you'll receive later today, there will be instructions. On the AMIS application training manual, there's a section on troubleshooting dependencies that kind of explains in detail. I won't go through it, step by step on this call, but it does explain in detail how you would go about sort of remedying that situation that you find yourself in. But yes, you can undo it. It just is you have to do a couple steps.
Okay, thank you. I'd not seen a response to the service request, and so that's why I asked the question. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Susan Murray. Your line is open.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Terrific. I'm struggling with the Title VI compliance worksheet. We haven't had to do this before, so I'm doing it for fiscal year 24, and I have questions on question 1D. Does the applicant have any pending applications or current awards of federal financial assistance with other federal awarding agencies other than CDFI funds? If yes, please provide the applicable agency, program name, and date and amount of the award. How far back do I have to go on that? Because I have like 10 or 12.
So we haven't put a date on how far back to go. So my suggestion for you is to list all of your federal awards that you currently have. I would suggest listing the awards that are still currently active.
Okay. Okay. And only federal, not state. All right.
Okay.
And then question 2B. Does the applicant make available information on their website informing persons of their rights under Title VI and Section 504 requirements? If yes, provide a link to the website. If no, describe the applicant's plan to make this available online. So my answer is no, I don't do it yet. So I need to tell you how I'm going to make that happen. But I'm reading the CFR, the instructions, the poster. I'm not clear on what exactly I need to put on my website to satisfy 2B, and 2C sounds like kind of like the same question. Can anyone give guidance on what's the best? Is there a link? Do I upload a link to the poster? Is it a separate tab on my website? I don't know what to do.
If there's a link to your website to this information, I would suggest you provide that information. If not, what I would encourage you to do is submit a service request so that we can look into the best ways for you to make this information available on your website if it is not. Because what we can do is reach out to our civil rights office to see what is acceptable to meet this requirement.
Okay. So do a service request, put my website address in the service request and ask for your input.
Yeah, just let us know that you're seeking guidance on how to best present this information on your website to make sure you are in compliance with this requirement.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Again, if you would like to ask a question, please press star 1 on your phone. Please ensure that your phone is unmuted and state your name clearly when prompted. Our next question comes from Jennifer Crather. Your line is open.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much. I have a question about PPC, persistent poverty counties, specifically how to fill it out in the chart. I'm thinking about the chart where you have the persistent poverty county calculation by historic years and then projected. And so my question is, for historic years, do you want to know the actual amount that was deployed in a persistent poverty county, or what was presented and filed like through our various PGM reports to the CDFI fund? I'm asking because we're a circumstance where 100% of our funding is always deployed in the persistent poverty county, but for some reports, we only show the amount that was like coded as PPC. That's the first part of my question. And the second part is also how to treat the projected years, whether the projected year would just have the amount that you're asking for in PPC funds or the actual you would deploy. Does that make sense?
Thanks for your patience. If you just give us a moment to confer about this in the background, we'll be right back with you.
Okay.
So in answer to the first question that you gave us, if you're doing 100% of your activity in a persistent poverty county, then you would want to reflect that as 100%. In those fields on the application financial data table.
Okay.
And can you repeat the second question, actually? That would be helpful.
Sure. The second question then is thinking about the projected years. And so I wasn't sure if the projected years should also show 100% of our projected lending, because we know we are locally based CDFI, we're only going to lend to this one area. Or if like the PPC amount has to equal the PPC request that we have into you in this latest FA application. So I'm making a number up, but if we are applying for $300,000 in PPC funds, should we only show $300,000 in that projected year because that's what we're applying for, or could we just show everything in there? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I think it's sort of the same guidance there for the projected years. You're satisfying your eventual performance goals and measures if you're awarded a PPC award is a separate matter, right? Like if you're deploying $1 million in a PPC, that's good to see and helps us in evaluating your application, but it won't necessarily relate to your performance goal and measure, right? Your performance goal will be tied to like deploying, an amount tied to the amount of your award in PPCs. So like it's a separate thing. Does that help answer your question?
That is. So if we're projecting $16 million in 2025 or whatever year it is, then we'll put $16 million in the PPC because we know that all of that would go there. Okay, right. Okay, thank you. That's very clear. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Yeah, I also do want to point out, and you may have already seen this, but there's also some, very specific instruction in the FA application guidance around how you should, for groups that are applying for PPC, how you should sort of treat and train the different information in the financial application, financial inputs because of the way the performance goals and measures are calculated and there's no sort of double counting between performance goals and measures if you get an award. So I would also encourage you to take a closer look at that if you haven't already. You may have, and these may be additional questions you have beyond that, but just for folks who are on the line or on the call, just please be aware that there is some specific instruction in the application financial data section of the FA application guidance.
Thank you. The next question comes from Andy Mayer. Your line is open.
Hi. I have a more technical question on the FA application. I hadn't accessed it in about a week, and now the status has changed to abandoned, and I can't edit anything. Should I go ahead and launch a new application, or should I wait for potentially the application to be reopened via a service request?
Hi, thanks for that question. And because that's something that's related specifically to your organization, I think we'd like to address that for you by having you submit a service request, and we can get a very quick response to you. We just need to take a look at your account and certain other things in AMIS to just give you some further guidance on how to proceed.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Marianne Tree. Your line is open.
Thank you. My question has to do with the Title VI template that we have to fill out. In question 2D, which is asking about providing services directly to customers, there is a clarification in the question that says, if an applicant does not provide direct services to a customer, we are to answer it yes. So otherwise, it would not be applicable to us. So the clarification is that it's not applicable, just answer yes. But then there's question 3A and 3B that have to do with language assistance plan, which is more relevant to if you're providing services directly to an individual. Whereas in our case, we provide services to other nonprofits. So there's no similar guidance, like if you don't provide direct services to a customer, answer yes. We're just trying to figure out how best to answer it. Should we just say no to both of those questions and explain that we don't have a language assistance plan because we don't provide direct services to customers?
Yes, that's how I would suggest you answer it. And once it's reviewed, if the compliance staff has any questions about how you answer this, they will reach out to you to get clarification.
Okay. All right. So then just to recap, so then for those questions 3A and 3B, we would say no, and then use the description field to explain why we've answered it that way, and that we don't provide services. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. As a reminder, if you would like to ask a question, please press *1 on your phone. Please ensure that your phone is unmuted and state your name clearly when prompted. Our next question comes from Leanne. Your line is open.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is actually a follow-up to the Title VI worksheet as well, and maybe this is already somewhat answered from the last caller, but are we disqualified from winning an award if we are unable to meet all of the requirements from the Title VI worksheet? It looks like we might be in the same place as the previous caller, whereas we can answer yes to all the questions, but one, would that be also us using the description field to expand on something?
I wouldn't say you would be disqualified. The worksheets will be reviewed and evaluated based on the responses that you provided. I just suggest that you be as honest as you can on the form. And again, if there are any issues with the way that you responded to any of the questions, the compliance staff will reach out to you. You will be given a chance to cure any non-compliance if you are found to be in non-compliance with this requirement.
Okay, thank you.
At this time, I am showing no further questions.
All right. Well, if there are no further questions, then we will take a minute to wrap up, and we'll do one final check. Operator, any other questions that came through in the last minute?
Two parties. One moment.
Okay, great.
The first one is from Kathy Kuharski. Your line is open.
Hi, thank you. I'm sorry. I have one more question that actually just came to me from one of my coworkers who's helping me with this application, and it has to do with the board members in the key personnel section. It says, for each board member, applicants should describe the accountability of the board member to the CDFI's target market. And then it says some other things, but also current source of accountability. We don't know what current source of accountability means, and we're trying to understand the definition of accountability of the board member to the target market. Can you help out with that?
Yeah, just give us a minute. We're just conferring on this one really quickly. We may have you repeat the question, but just give us a quick minute.
Mm-hmm. And I also wanted to clarify: is this in the is this responding to a specific question in the TA application, or is it in the section where you're in the key personnel section of the application?
It's the key personnel section of the FA application, I think.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Hi, this is Tanya. So the source of accountability, that is something that is a certification requirement. And so you would, there are certain accountability requirements that board members and committee members must meet per the CDFI certification to be accountable to their target market or investment area. And so you would need to, familiarize yourself or, should be familiar with the requirements that the CDFI fund has around accountability for board members.
Can you clarify if that's under, we haven't gone through we are certified and we haven't done the recertification. Is that based on the old or the new? Just in case there's a difference. I don't know because I don't do the certification.
Hold on a second. Hi, sorry about that. We were conferring. Given that we're, in a transition period and we understand that, that certified CDFIs are, currently certified under the sort of the certification requirements that were in place up until recently and have not undergone, their recertification. I would speak to how the board members are currently accountable to your target market under the current process that that you've deemed them to be accountable, therefore meeting the requirements.
Wait, under the current process, meaning
of their assignment as election as a board member.
But when you say current, you mean under the current thing that we are certified under, or under the most current version of the certification?
The certification requirements that you are certified under.
Okay.
You individually as a CDFI. If you want more specific feedback, you could submit a service request. But we understand that this is sort of a transition period, and there are going to, folks are certified right now as CDFIs under the requirements that were in place before the recent certification application, came out. So we understand we're in a transition period. So please explain how they're accountable, how you deem them to be accountable when they were, sort of put on your board.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Eva Norris St. John. Your line is open.
Yes. I apologize. I came on late, so I'm not sure if this was a question that was raised before. But I'm trying to find out if this year's application includes portfolio statistics. As a consultant, I don't have access to my client's application, but I don't see a reference to it in the application guidance.
Hi, this is Tanya. Just to clarify, I think you're referencing the CDFI and NACA application previously had a portfolio outstanding broken out by state. Is that what you're referencing?
Yes. It also included characteristics related to the portfolio, I believe.
That requirement, that item is no longer, if that is indeed the item you're referencing, we actually removed that from the application.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I just wanted to be sure. Mm-hmm. Okay, yep. Thank you.
Sure.
At this time, I'm showing no further questions.
Okay. We'll just give everybody another minute just in case we have any final questions. Again, we'll just do one final call for questions and give everybody a minute. If there are any final questions, please take this opportunity to ask them. As a follow-up, if you do have any questions after this call, or if there are items that we asked you to submit an SR for, please go ahead and do that, and we will get back to you as soon as we can and get a response to you so that we can answer any questions that you have. All right. Operator, are there any other questions?
We do have one question that just queued up. One moment.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Our next question comes from Becca Webb. Your line is open.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Oh, perfect. I just wanted to double check on the list of board members. We have a governing board, and then we also have a community advisory board. And the advisory board is how we are currently showing our accountability to the markets we serve. So I wasn't sure if we needed to put governing board members in that list for the app, or if we should put the advisory board members.
just give us a minute. We're just conferring on the question. And
Sure, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, yes. This is Tanya. Just to respond to your question, there's a few different places where we ask for information around your committees or boards. We do ask for your board members in the key personnel section under subsection C. There's also an opportunity where you can put in a number of different committees that can also be used to discuss accountability. So we would suggest that you would put in your, complete the information that is required of your board members. And then this is your governing board. And then if you have an advisory board, that you would put them in as, one, or if you only have, if that is the only committee, put that in as a committee. You can talk about the accountability in that section. Just subsection D of section 9 in the, well, actually the sections may be different for, no, actually I think they're the same, I'm sorry, for FA and TA, but that's where that information would be entered in the application.
Okay, super, thank you.
At this time, I'm showing no further questions.
All right. Just going to do one final call for questions. I know I said that a few times, but I do want to make sure that we take this opportunity while we have it to answer any questions that folks have on this call. So again, if you do have a question, please enter in *0 and you should be able to ask your question. Operator, any other questions?
At this time, I'm showing no parties have queued up.
Okay. Well, since we have no other questions, I will, at this point, I'll just wrap up our call. Thank you again to everybody for joining us on today's webinar. Thank you for your questions. As I noted earlier, if there was a question that we were unable to answer for you, or you have an additional question that comes up after this webinar, please feel free to submit a service request or email us, and we will do our best to get an answer back to you right away. As always, this call was recorded and will be posted on the website with all of the other application materials. If there are any questions, submit an SR, submit an email, and we'll get back to you. Thank you again to everybody for joining, and hope everyone has a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you. This does conclude today's conference. You may disconnect at this time. Thank you and have a good day. One moment.